Hi everyone, it's Max McClellan here from Millwall TV and Wall Talk, and you're listening to the famous AchtungMillwall.
Hello dear listeners, welcome to a slightly delayed Something for the Weekend show with me, Nick Hart, and my compatriot, Mr. Neil Fissler. Welcome to the show, Neil.
Hello, Nick. How you going, everybody? Sorry about the delay. It was, it's actually my fault. I tried to be too flash yesterday, and I tried to get too much done in one day, and unfortunately, scheduled deliveries, organised in phone interviews, etc., 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 and before you knew it, Nick had gone out.
Very rare occurrence for me these days, listeners. But anyway, yeah, I've gone out. Anyway, it's Saturday morning. It's they do say that you should establish your format and then immediately break it. That's what we've done with this show. Normally we try and get these out for a Friday, as you know, listeners. Neil, we're speaking ahead of this afternoon's trip to Bramall Lane. It's a bit of a test fixture for us, really, on the back of a really good start to the league season last week. We've mentioned already the 2-0 win over Stoke City at the Den last Saturday. Great performance, some really good showings, top of the league, blah, blah, blah. And then the most Millwall thing of all, we go to Cambridge for the Carabao Cup and turn in the diametric opposite. I mean, I didn't see the fixture, Neil. I don't know if you saw it at all on screen, but I've only gone by press reports since, but just the result and the bottom line of sending off and injuries makes it a bit of a disaster, a Tuesday night disaster in Cambridge.
Yeah, no, I didn't see it. It was advertised as being on Serbian TV. I think that everybody got
Putin channel.
we got slightly excited at the thought of being able to see this game from Cambridge. I think I was more pissed off than that the result the following day, actually. But you know what it's like. It's just typical Millwall, isn't it? We pitch up at somewhere like Cambridge, think we're going to win it, and we come unstuck spectacularly, don't we? Throughout the competition, nah, I don't think so. At the end of the day, well, we'd probably only go a round or two anyway, wouldn't we? And they're not exactly queuing up to buy tickets for games. So, considering that we've got a congested fixture list up until the Neil and Nick's World Cup history break, I think it might actually be a good thing.
I agree. I mean, my initial it's a strange thing, listeners. I mean, the Carabao Cup, the League Cup in old money, going into, I think, Neil, you and I said we don't want to be involved in it for Terry. We do want to focus on the league. That has to be our be all and end all this season. Cup runs are nice. FA Cup runs are nice, but Carabao Cup runs not so much. But you still feel disappointed when you go out. I think probably in the circumstances. I mean, it sounds like it was. We had one or two moments where we were unlucky. Isaac Alofe apparently had a couple of chances in the second half, going purely by reports, listeners. But to lose Tom Bradshaw to injury, Fleming I think was injured prior to the game, and then we get a sending off that sounds very avoidable for George Honeyman. Makes it, I don't know if calamity is the right word, but it's certainly a bit of a kick in the nuts early in the season, isn't it, to go out in that way?
Yeah, I think if we hadn't put such a strong team out, I might not have had the ump half as much as I did. I think if we'd have put an under-23 team out and we'd have lost 1-0 up there, you'd have just shrugged your shoulders and said, "Oh well, it's pretty good experience." But we did have quite a strong side out, and
well, we did. I mean, that's part of the disappointment of it all, because it sounds like a poor performance, and with the Honeyman sending off, sounds like it's slack, shall we put it that way. But when you look at that team, Long in goal, Hutchinson, Cresswell, Murray, Wallace, Danny Mack, Ryan Leonard, George Evans, Saville, Bradshaw, Bennett and Honeyman. That's a decent 11, as you say. That could be a starting 11 in other circumstances. So to turn out a poor performance is a little bit of a, I don't know, is it a worry? I don't know. I don't know if I'm entitled to be worried on the strength of this cup tie loss or not, really, but it's certainly a disappointment to go out in those circumstances.
Yeah, by all accounts, the Honeyman sending off was totally avoidable. I think there were certainly observations that the second yellow card wasn't a yellow card. It was the referee being a bit of a
dick, yeah,
normal, and maybe Gary Rowett should have seen it coming and hooked him, which I don't know. I didn't really see the game, so
no. I don't know why the Caribou Cup is always such a difficult competition. I mean, it sounds like a very good game to have missed, Neil. Let's be honest. But it seems to be a right performance to get a stream on these games. I think the Caribou sponsorship limits what can be shown and where it can be shown. But
I think Football League, when they sold the last set of rights, they gave there was a no streaming clause in it,
right?
Which to me seems
bizarre.
Absolutely, yeah. I know that Mel Morris, when he was in charge at Derby County, was very highly critical of the way that, I think it was Mel Morris, it was certainly one of their owners, was certainly very sceptical of the generous terms that were
agreed. Yeah.
But you half expect these games to actually be available, but they weren't even available for overseas viewers.
No, I mean, given that the attendances are invariably paltry. I mean, I don't know what it was for Cambridge. It might be a more of an attractive fixture for them, I suppose. But if it was played at the Den, you'd guarantee it being one stand open and maybe a few thousand in the Den. You'd think that Carabao, the soft drink company, would want TV exposure, wouldn't you? I don't know, but no, it's always very difficult. I mean, last season was difficult. I remember looking on the Caribou website one season. They showed games live on there, on the soft drink website. They're like a linked sports page, but I don't think even that's available now. So it's kind of a strange setup. But we're out of it. Probably for better, in truth. And we've got a big fixture today, Neil, all the way up there in South Yorkshire and Sheffield. This is going to be a big test for us today. Can we come back from that midweek disappointment?
Yeah, funnily enough, I was just having a look to try and see if I could find what the attendance was, and it's not readily available anymore.
No one really cares about it. It's not the fixture that, apart from the impact we've had, it's like it almost didn't exist, you know.
After last Saturday, I was quite confident that we were going to go up there and we'd get something out of it. But as they say, a week is a long time in politics. It's a hell of a long time at Millwall Football Club, isn't it? What with injuries and suspensions, you kind of think, I don't really want to go up to Sheffield United.
No, just short of 1,300 are going up there. So hats off to them, especially if we get this podcast out quickly, you'll be able to hear it before you get to the ground. So that's a pretty good away attendance on the back of a really good start to the season last week. I'm just looking at the club website. You know, the 100% championship record, only one game gone. We are top of the league.
We are top of the league.
Make the most of it whilst we can, perhaps. But as they're saying here, no Zian Fleming and Tom Bradshaw both out for, I think, 3 or 4 weeks. I think I saw in both cases now, Bradshaw and Fleming, Neil. And a one-match suspension for George Honeyman, who looked like that's going to be a bit of a loss because he was a real dynamo last week against Stoke. So that's the whole thing has suddenly got a bit of a backs to the wall quality, isn't it?
Yeah, it just shows that we were saying, what a great strength squad we've got this season. And we go out of the Carabao Cup at Cambridge and you've got 2 injuries and a suspension, and you start thinking, actually, it might not be as strong as we thought it was.
No, maybe it's more fragile. I must admit, I felt really disappointed in the aftermath of that loss at Cambridge, and I'm kind of going around in circles in my own head as to whether I should or shouldn't feel that way, because we do need to think about the league more than anything else. So hopefully we'll get a bounce back today. I'm just reading the club's website, and they're mentioning the likes of Mason Bennett chance for the Tyler Bury and Isaac Alofe to impress today. I mean, I think the prospects of Isaac going out on loan now has maybe receded slightly, Neil, with that injury to Tom Bradshaw. We do need as many attacking options as we can, and still no sign really of any incoming signings. So maybe Rowett sees that as, something we can work with going forwards for them whilst this Bradshaw injury works out.
You know what? It was a funny thing. We were praising the recruitment the other week. And
now we damn them.
Blindingly obvious, we do need a couple of players still, and hopefully last Saturday didn't lure them into a false sense of security. Well, maybe we can get away with this till January.
Lured me into it. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see whether faith is shown to Isaac Alofe. He's been unlucky. I mean, apparently he's unlucky at Cambridge. We didn't see much of him last week, did we, against Stoke?
I think he just needs one to bobble in off his ball or something, really.
He needs confidence, doesn't he? Yeah.
He just needs one to go in off any part of his anatomy that will give him the little boost that he needs, because there's no two ways about it. There's probably a player in there somewhere. Yeah,
absolutely.
Coming from playing under 23 football, which it's good, but it's not brilliant, is it? And
no.
In non-league football and then League One, it just makes you wonder if they should maybe have aimed for a little bit higher last year and given him a bit more experience at a higher level instead of League Two.
Leaving him in on loan.
Yeah.
I mean, he earned praise from Gary Rowett after the midweek game. I think clearly the club wants Isaac to get confidence fast. And I think we'll probably see him at some point this afternoon. We'll find out later as we're recording this in the morning. But
there's nothing else there.
Yeah, I wish him well. Danny Mac soap opera, Neil. We've praised Millwall enough. I think probably we're going to have to start damning them now very shortly after last week's excitement. But the Danny Mac soap opera seems to have reached a bit of a dead end, a cul-de-sac. There's a report here on, I think it's News at Den. Gary Rowett saying it's very simple where we are. That there's an offer on the table, basically, and we want him to settle down. I mean, the rest of it, I think, is the ball seems to be in Danny's court now as to whether he wants to accept or move on, I guess. Yeah,
there are various whispers going around. It's to do with the length of the contract and an unrealistic release clause.
Right.
Millwall have apparently tried to put in. You can't blame them in a certain way. He's a good young player, and we don't want to sell our good young players on the cheap, do we? Or all the time, and they can see what kind of money good young players are going for. So Millwall, with this new look Millwall, I think, we'll have a bit of that for once. And it's not gone down well with
the player. We want, I mean, from our point of view being the Millwall support and the listeners of our show, we want Millwall to have the best possible deal. I mean, obviously the players' interest is going to be different to the club's interest. So hopefully you have a negotiation, you reach a balance point in the middle. But unless you're in the contract conversations, it's kind of difficult to speculate on what is and what isn't the situation. But it does need resolution soon, because it's just dragging on now, isn't it?
Yeah, I think a lot of people's judgment is clouded by the fact that him and his family are Millwall. So it's almost untouchable, that kind of thing, and that this is the club's fault for asking for an unrealistic buyout clause or release clause, whatever you want to call it, and maybe length of contract. But you're right, it's got to reach a resolution. QPR haven't come in with a more realistic bid.
No.
Nobody else seems to have come in. The player himself, by all accounts, didn't have a good game the other day and hasn't had a good pre-season.
Well, he started Tuesday, didn't he? And part of the losing side that didn't play, the bottom line part of the results didn't look good. So it must be weighing on his mind. I think it's a real burden, Neil, for a player. Let's talk about Millwall players, to carry that burden of being a Millwall fan, yet from a Millwall family, and be playing for the club. It adds a layer to your shoulders. And I mean, you think back to some of the recent examples, leave aside Danny Mack, but Ben Thompson, even going back to the likes of Sid Nelson, and there've been others over the years. And John Marquis was that one I was thinking of. It puts weight on your shoulders somehow to be carrying all that expectation, because you're a Millwall fan. You've got to put even more than 100% in somehow. It's unfair in some ways.
Yeah. Although you are cut extra slack, I think.
Can be, not always, but you can be. Yeah.
I think you almost obtain untouchable status, don't you? Almost like Neil Harris status, I think, in the eye.
Some do, yeah. Some do. Some don't quite make it.
In against, but it needs to be resolved one way or another. No, then I don't know if there's a compromise to be found. It worries me slightly that he's got a year left on his contract. If he had another couple of years left on his contract, I'd say, yeah, there's quite a lot of time here. But the clock's ticking, and do the club really want to play Russian roulette with an agent and a player? And
no, well, we've just lost Jed for nothing. I mean, this was the same dynamic, wasn't it? A contract was running out, and yes, the renewals were offered to him, supposedly very good ones, but he wanted to.
I think there was an agenda that he wasn't going to sign it, and the agent and that, they just weren't truthful enough to say that, unless they did say that behind closed doors, and the club didn't relay that information. But I think here there is a desire for him to stay, and but it's just marrying the two.
Just not at all costs. I mean, there's every player has a price limit, so to speak, and then maybe the club want him to stay, but that's not like an over. That's not at all costs, as in the way I've put it there. So we'll see. We'll see. It does need resolution, as we keep saying.
Achtung, Millwall.
No One Likes Us Clothing is the clothing range designed by Millwall fans for Millwall fans. Caps, t-shirts, polos, they've got it all. Visit noonelikesus.co.uk for the full range. Or if you're in Bermondsey on a match day, why not have a pint in the Blue Anchor pub and pick up a Nolu polo shirt, Nolu clothing at www.noonelikesus.co.uk. Of when you make a list of talking points for a podcast, how events can overtake you. Tom Bradshaw is hoping to receive a call up for the Welsh side in 2022's World Cup. It's He's out for 4 weeks now, so I'm not sure that's going to help his calls for Qatar, Neil.
Yeah, well, I'm also hoping that Maria Sharapova knocks on my door wearing being busy. Can I come and watch the game? Yeah, well, that ain't going to happen either.
Can we watch Millwall, Neil? Then we'll put some rugby on, mate, and I'll do us a dinner.
Liz Hurley's gonna swipe the right way on Tinder. Like that.
There's a bizarre situation for you, listeners. So anyway, that's Tom. Tom was hoping to go to Qatar with the Welsh national side.
I don't think there's much hope for that, is there? He's been out Welsh set up for quite a long time. I think he'd really need to, he'd need to be on fire, as they say, wouldn't he? But he'd need 5-10. I don't know. However many goals. I don't even know who manages Wales these days since Ryan Giggs.
No, he's got his own problems, hasn't he?
I think it's Rob.
A little bit of trouble. Interesting signing. We signed a goalkeeper this week, Connell Truman from Birmingham City, former Birmingham City. This has allowed Ryan Sanford to join Dover Athletic of the National League South on loan for the season. Strange signing. I mean, you think, at a time where we even before Tom Bradshaw got injured, Neil, I think most of us would have said another striker would have gone down a storm at the Den, but we pick up a goalkeeper. It's an odd move, isn't it?
I think it's because they'd like to have 3 goalkeepers, don't they? Just in case you go through the scenario the other season where Frank Fielding got injured,
yeah,
led to Bart being needed, and we didn't have a great deal of faith, I don't think, in Ryan Sanford, or
clearly not. No.
Thought he didn't have enough experience. By the token he's going at, he'll probably be about 40 by the time he game.
Also, the level, National League South, Dover Athletic. I mean, no disrespect to Dover, that's a fair drop.
Yeah, you wonder, is it? Is it his time, and
is that his level? I mean, maybe that's the problem, and we need to strengthen, obviously, to for the reasons you've said.
On the goalkeeping situation, I did see something about Barton Leicester. I know that Grass went to
Nice, is it? Nice in France.
Yeah, and somebody put somewhere. I think it pops up on my Facebook feed. Actually, a Millwall fan mentioning Barton Leicester. Strange one.
Possible.
Yeah, I could almost see it in a strange sort of way, because he's probably one of the best goalkeepers in the Championship. But by the same token, he did say, I think there was a story on News at London News Online or News at Den this week, and he's in his last year of his contract, and he said he does want to stay. So I guess he's 35, nearly 36.
Yeah, I mean, he's late in his career. I mean, that would surprise me. I mean, goalkeepers have a longevity, don't they, in the game that outfield players don't. It would a move to Leicester would surprise me in some ways, just for that reason. Really, he's fairly a long way down the track, in career terms. So
short-term signing, maybe they can't
possible.
Get. Yeah. But then it would leave us woefully short.
Yeah,
I've never seen George Long play, I don't think, because he plays in these competitions.
He's a Caribou goalkeeper. I saw him last season, the midweek game earlier. He looked all right. He looked okay, but you'd much prefer Bart Bielkowski, and when he's on form, he's got a shot-stopping ability as good as any goalkeeper I've ever seen in a Millwall shirt, and that's going back to Brian King in the early 70s. I think that he's the equal of any of those players in terms of shot stopping. Maybe you could talk about his distribution, Neil, and the modern day expectation that goalkeepers can pass the ball out and find players, which wasn't really imposed on goalkeeping of old, was it?
No, you even get the heart-stopping moments like last Saturday, don't you, where he mysteriously lets one go through body and then scoops it back from over the line.
Well, I was saying that in the other show I did the other day. It was both a calamitous error, and then a miracle that he's pulled out to put that right. I mean, it's a strange combo, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just a typical Millwall goalkeeper. You think back to our goalkeepers have been prone to something like that, haven't they? I can remember.
Yeah.
David Ford would pull off 4 blinding saves and would then let one through his hand, wouldn't he? And, Jordan Archer had his moments, and you think
one or two. Yeah.
You think to the West Ham fan.
What was his name? David Martin. Yeah,
calamitous goal that he let in.
Yeah,
Foster's teaching Pep Guardiola a thing or two about football, and it's just. Yeah, they're just prone to it, aren't they? Yeah, luckily, I thought it was in, actually, to be honest.
I wonder. I mean, clearly they have these chips in the ball, and the referee would have given the goal if the watch or whatever it is, the wrist device, if it had gone off. But to pull that save off was as much of a miracle as the original error was, slapstick. We've said already that we come to praise Mill, but also not quite to damn them, but we will call it as it is, listeners, when it comes to our club. And Neil, we wanted to mention a few pointers from last week's game versus Stoke. And number one, which I make a joke, I call where I sit bird shit corner. And there is a good reason for that, because there is always bird shit there, loads and loads of bird shit. Which in one way is vaguely amusing in for a moment, but actually every time, it was a reasonably full house last week, Neil, and block one to be full up meant that there were people with kids standing in the corner where I stood was reasonably full. And I don't know what they feed these pigeons on in Bermondsey, listeners, but there's some fairly large dollops of I think it's called guano, isn't it? Bird droppings. I don't know if the club have anyone that actually checks the stadium out. It needs regularly jetting. You can't beat it, but you do need to keep on top of it, and no one seems to do that. I don't know what the rest of the ground is like.
There were various reports that I saw various things at various parts of the ground. Obviously, they do check the ground because they actually do clear up after every game. So, and that's not make too much of a point about it, but these things, they are a health hazard. Yeah.
No, as kids,
kids are like, they drop something on the floor and
they pick it up. Yeah, that's right.
Stick it in their gob.
Yeah.
So you would have thought the first game of the season, after them not using the ground for best part of 2 months, that you don't expect it to be spanky new week in, week out. These things do happen, but surely somebody goes along and they see it's a basic maintenance thing, isn't it? That there's a load of bird poo everywhere, so you jet wash it down. And they do go around because they do take away people's waste. It's not like it's not like Millwall fans are asked to pick up after themselves.
Clean after themselves. No. They must. I imagine the cleaners have given the brief to go and pick up the litter and the like, as you're saying, but their job is not to point out. I don't know. What do you want to call it? Is it maintenance or just general housekeeping? Let's call it that.
There were things like TVs not working on concourses,
right?
And these are really basic things that you would have thought that you would do a tour of the ground once a week and just put these fairly simple things right. It's the little things. Yeah, well, I know that we go on about the match day experience now, and apparently the German sausage and the new bar went down an absolute storm last week.
Which is great to hear. That's what we want. So praise with criticism, but we've praised them for that.
Yeah, and they were putting up a more permanent structure. I think I saw a photo of in the week, and it's brilliant. But it's just the little things that you've got to raise your standards. And to have a TV not working on the concourse, well, you might just take the bloody TV out if it isn't going to work. And you've had all summer to fix these things. So what are people doing? Are they not going around and doing basic checks? Which brings us on to the biggest kick in the nuts I want to give the club.
Yeah, go for it, mate. Yeah.
And that is, I saw the photos on Hoff last week that somebody's paid his hard-earned money to buy a season ticket, and pitches up, all excited. Gets, I think it was the front row of the Jeremy Kyle stand.
Okay, yeah.
Bramall Lane, the upper tier. All excited, looking forward to it. gets up, walks up the stairs, and in the anticipation, you see that little bit of we see that chink of light, then you see the pit.
You're doing a drama of us.
And then he can't find his seat because his seat has been removed.
So he literally can't find his seat.
He gets there, and there are photos on Hoff. They've taken the front row of seats out. Now, what buffoon has thought it's acceptable to not tell the ticket office, who have sold this guy's seat, or family of seats?
Yeah.
Because there was actually a quite amusing photo of his son being sat on the frame.
Right, because they remove the plastic seat, but they don't remove the metal frame underneath it.
So what just goes through?
Why would you do that? I don't even know why you. There might be a good reason for it, but you're right. You don't sell the tickets for it if that's what you must do for some reason.
Probably not the brand manager or the maintenance manager or something. The stadium manager retired, but even still, if the orders come to actually take the front row of seats out, hasn't it? It's from up high.
Yeah. So
surely
delete it off the ticket website.
You would tell the ticket office not to sell a seat that doesn't exist. Yeah, it's just frustrating that this kind of thing. Oh, yeah, well, okay, people make mistakes. Yeah,
it can happen. I mean, if there's a reason to remove it, I don't know what the reason is to remove that front row. I know they do it down on the lower tier. They've got some the old front row of seats is now gone. I don't know why they have that, but anyway, if there's a reason for it, then fine.
We just want to keep that. We want to make it as difficult as we can to attend games, and we want the lowest possible attendance. What would have happened last week, and it was entirely plausible, if we'd have sold out of tickets, because I think, was there 14, 13?
Yeah, I mean, there weren't many spare seats knocking around, a few in block one, and that's always my personal guide to how big a crowd we've got. Because if there's people in where I sit, the nutcase that talks into his microphone, then I know it's a big crowd on today, you know.
Exactly. And what would you have done if you'd have taken that whole row of seats out, you'd have sold out the stadium, and then a guy turns up, and his seat's missing? It's just mind-blowing incompetence of
It's very, very basic. It's almost like we haven't quite got this running a football club. The details after 135 years.
85, haven't we? Yeah, we've only got 140 years nearly to get it, or 130, 140 years to get it right, haven't we? It's just a mind-blowing basic. I know we've lavished praise on them, and we did so then.
Yeah.
With the
catering, and we've mentioned it a few times, and well done for as you said. I mean, I've seen similar reports about the
around the back of the stand. I think they still have a live band playing, don't they?
Yeah, that's all good.
But you've got to get your basics right, yeah. And that brings me on to something else: is ticketing.
Go on.
And that is the Cambridge game from last week, from the Carabao Cup game. Cambridge said tickets were on sale on the evening, and then very hastily followed it up by, no, the police have said we can't sell tickets, but allegedly Millwall had said don't sell tickets. I don't know.
Right.
And Sheffield, and there were people complaining they hadn't had the season tickets. They hadn't had the right season tickets. There were big queues, apparently, people before the game for people buying tickets, and Sheffield United tickets hadn't arrived by yesterday with people buying them.
I saw some tweets, people saying I still haven't had my Sheffield. I mean, I think they were sent to some extent, the club must be in the hands of the away side there, Cambridge and Sheffield, and you can only send out tickets physically once you've got them. So whether there's a delay in that, I don't know. Sometimes communication becomes a bit of a thing, doesn't it? The fact that you've got people that want to go and watch Mill play Cambridge because you can't see it on the telly.
What difference would it have made? You'd have probably had 50, 100 people turn up on the night. Maybe
I wouldn't have thought huge numbers.
Finished work and they thought, "Yeah, I quite fancy going to Cambridge now."
It's only up the road, so maybe, I don't know. Maybe you've got a few hundred. I don't know.
And I'll be there in an hour.
It's not going to be another Luton 1985 where 10,000 people turn up and swamp Cambridge, is it? It's not going to be so.
It's just. We don't seem to want our fans with us anywhere. I know we've got a fair few Wallies do turn up, but that isn't going to attract them. It's just mind blowing that the fans to this club sometimes are a bit of an inconvenience, and if you can actually run it in COVID time without us.
We used to have when I used to work in housing estates, listeners. It was always a slightly kind of sarcastic thing that it'd be a great job for housing management if it wasn't for the tenants that lived in the properties.
And Millwall's almost like that.
Football would be a great sport if it wasn't for the fans that paid for it.
But no, it's just come on, you've got to get your act together with things. It's just a small things, and it's frustrating because you can see things moving in the right direction, and then there's things that just bring us entirely back. I know people were complaining about kits last week and they're not being available, but I think that's outside of.
Well, I suppose the club shop will be governed by the manufacturers of Hummel, isn't it now?
Achtung, Millwall.
No, I'd take your point. There's small stuff, and we want Millwall to succeed. We want it to be, no one's looking for it to be a kind of a good example, a Tottenham Hotspur style match day experience with cheese boards and all that. But to clean up the stadium, I don't understand why they've removed the seats in the upper tier of the Bramall Lane. I don't get what they've achieved by doing that, other than it means people can't sit and put their cups of coffee on the ledge. But then, why is that a problem? If that's the reason, I don't know why you do it. And then to sell tickets for seats that have been physically removed is just plain laughable. Anyway, I think we've probably made our point, Neil. And one other thing, apparently Coventry City have been given the lower tier for the away their away game, our home game, next Saturday, which is good to see. It'd be nice to see that away end made full use of.
Yeah, you could probably actually take your shoes and socks off and count on your fingers and toes how many times that had been used. And interestingly, it was posted on. I did have a look, and it was posted in a couple of places. They had to sell the lower tier before they sold the upper tier.
Oh.
Which is generally the other way around. But
okay.
But it is good to see that we are starting to sell that lower tier, because it's chronically underused, isn't it? But
everything we've spoken about, all of these faults, some cases incompetence to sell tickets, but the cleaning of these stadiums, it always comes back to money or lack of it. The only reason you have any maintenance problems in anything is when you don't want to spend the money. The more money we can get in, and that means from the away end, is to sell that lower tier. I mean, it's historically just been shut, and it's just like dead space, and that's never going to be good, is it?
It doesn't help that it's going to attract the two corners in the Millwall end, isn't it?
Yeah, but that's security. That's down to the club to get that organised right, isn't it?
Certain amount of, can it be trusted? I think always down at Millwall, it's, can it be trusted? Yeah.
Let's hope so. It can be, because otherwise we're losing out, aren't we?
Yeah, exactly. Just put something up in between, and you would do like they do at Nottingham Forest. If you ever look above your head, if you go to Nottingham Forest, there's actually a net that comes out, isn't there?
Well, that's what I wonder. You see it a lot in sports. I was looking at some US baseball, and they got netting to stop the balls going into the crowd for safety. So you could stuff like that stops problems, you know. And also, just thinking back, Neil, I mean, lower tier. I mean, West Ham 2004, the Mother's Day Massacre, they had the lower tier for that. There was some.
But that's probably the most
highest profile category AA, not category A, is AA plus. I remember Arsenal in the day they had the lower tier.
Did Chelsea have the lower tier as well? I think did Chelsea.
I think it was intended. Well, I can't imagine they wouldn't have done.
Gillingham here. I certainly remember when they were going for promotion one year. They got the lower tier towards the end of the season. I think didn't AFC Wimbledon?
Wimbledon did. I'm sure Norwich have in their time when Norwich were on whether were they in League One, or it might have been Championship. I don't know. But anyway, they brought they were on a surge, so they brought a big away following. So it's been done. There's no reason why it can't be done. It does come down to security, as you rightly say. And if we'll see how it works out. And it's good to see the effort being made.
We throwing flares and this, that, and the other in the game last week against they played
Stoke,
didn't they?
Yeah, there were flares. I mean, that's a modern day problem. But that comes back to the club organisation security. I mean, if people can walk in with these on them, then they've not been probably patted down properly, have they, outside? So
no, that's maybe Mr. Kavanagh's dog brigade or whatever at the back of the East Stand last year. People never really forgiven him about when. The dog's dog. Could we have a flare dog out the back of the away end or something like that?
Kavanagh's dog brigade sounds like a circus act, listeners, isn't it? Jumping through hoops and running with balls on their noses and things, you know. There we are. Let's move along, Neil, because there's a couple of bits we wanted to mention. It's the start today. I don't know if you're interested in this, listeners, at all. I'm not. The almighty, all-consuming, all tedious Premier League is back. Well, it's actually back last night. Arsenal
didn't it? Yeah,
played Palace.
They played the Nigels, and they got spanked. The Nigels, didn't they? It's going to be a long, hard season for the Nigels.
It is, and you love to see it. You know that's what we like. Strange, the Premier League. No, it is all consuming, and yet I find it so boring. I don't know if that's if it's a viewpoint that's shared by many, but I just can't get interested in it. Liverpool, Manchester City, who cares? You know, and that's the debate seems to be who's going to get relegated, really. Yeah,
let's face it. The media's in this country is driven by the Premier League. Nobody else gets a look in. I watched the game last night. I must admit, it was either that or the cricket competition that I won't mention the name of.
I was going to mention that. I was going to start off the show with that with you to try and tease you, but I thought, no, I can't be that cruel.
Yeah, but despite the fact that a mate of mine is press officer of one of the clubs. But no, you just can't escape from it, and nobody else gets a look at it.
No. So anyway, it begins, but we shan't mention it other than that on this show. Couple of
really, is it? We're Millwall and
that's all we care about. All we care. We do try and cast our net slightly more widely. And this story fascinated me. Now, it's non-league, listeners. Turn your volume down if you don't want to listen to it. But Walton and Hersham, which is quite a famous non-league name, a famous FA Cup run I think it was in the 70s, Walton and Hersham. And Hersham, obviously, is the area where the band Sham 69 were named after.
Weren't they sponsored by Theo Paphitis at one time?
Believe so, yeah, believe so. but they've been taken over by a bunch. Well, they're actually listed on the BBC as the world's youngest football club owners. School friends, Jack, a bunch of them. I won't name them all. About 6 of them have put their student loans together and have bought Walton and Hersham and they're running it as a kind of a TikTok online, kind of a non-league club. And there's a lot of this now that takes place. How long it can last, I don't know, but I'm not sure that this club, your student loan, was intended to buy non-league football clubs and run it as a social media sensation, But that's what they've done.
Well, Crawley are owned by an NFT company, aren't they? And apparently, or a crypto company, and apparently,
something on it, yeah.
They held a vote amongst NFT holders and season ticket holders for what position they wanted. They wanted the club to strengthen, and they went out and they bought a player on the result of the vote. But mate,
it's the modern world.
Can't you pot noodles from the old serving hatches, the tea bars selling pot noodles, Mars bars, £1 pints, vomit everywhere, Jaeger bombs at half time. And
we're not in the Plymouth nightclub now, Neil.
Yeah, but then they'll lose. They'll lose heart, won't they? Midway through, when things aren't quite going their way.
Well, it's interesting because there's been a few clubs that have done. I mean, Ebbsfleet, I think, had they had like an online.
They did own a football club, wasn't it? But it
went bent on them, didn't it? They almost bankrupted the club. They went badly wrong for them.
Yeah, but I think it was run very well for the first season.
Yeah,
and then there was. Yeah, but they wanted to go too far. There was, I think, talk when they first started that they wanted to run votes on substitutions and team selection. You can't do that. It's football.
It doesn't work. No, at the end of the day, it's got to be down to the manager on the spot, so to speak.
But good luck to them.
They're 19 years old. They're the world's youngest club owners. They've clubbed together, rightly or wrongly, with their student loans, and they bought Walton and Hersham. So they're on TikTok, listeners. If you're on TikTok, I don't go on TikTok. It's not my scene.
I think they're probably going to get a few million views on TikTok. But if they can, but then the trick is to actually equate that,
into money.
To money. At the end of the day, TikTok revenues aren't great.
No.
Well, as you said, we're old school. We don't believe in.
You're not going to get me TikToking anything, listeners. So don't.
There are a podcast, a Millwall podcast that is on TikTok, and
well, I do think you and me should be doing a Morecambe and Wise style TikTok. Maybe we could get millions of viewers and really make our names. I don't know.
You're like Grime Granny.
Final story, listeners. One that I loved. This has done the rounds on. This has done the rounds online. Southend United. Now, I don't know. You must have seen this. They Roots Hall, their West Stand, has been sponsored by local Southend estate agents Gilbert and Rose, so they've renamed it as the Gilbert and Rose West Stand.
You know what? Yeah, I was listening to. I first heard about this. I listened to Simon Jordan. They do it. He does the mid-morning show, doesn't he? On Talk Sport. What went through? Well, I know I know. I'll go back to Millwall selling the front row of seats. Telling people that they didn't have a seat. But what went through somebody's mind? They must have seen the Gilbert and Rose West Stand. the millennial, hadn't ever heard of Rose West.
You'd be surprised what people haven't heard of. I mean, I think there's an expectation from no disrespect to you or to me intended, but we are longer in the tooth, perhaps. But I think it's easy to forget that kids, anyone maybe over the age of or under the age of maybe early 20s, wouldn't know who Fred and Rose West were, why they're notorious. You can never ever discount the possibility that someone's not heard of something you consider to be blindingly obvious, but. That's clearly what's gone down here at Roots Hall, the Gilbert and Rose West End. Now, sadly, because when this story broke, I said to Harry, who lives not down the road from me, let's get down to we had to do a podcast. Harry and I from the Gilbert and Rose West Stand. We were going to go and record, but I think they're going to change the name of it now. The club have said they want to find a different wording arrangement to get rid of the Rose West
and Rose Stand. I think that would have been the more sensible thing. Times like this, you think, thank God it's not. Yeah, but it was bad enough when we forgot an away kit. I think
we did that, didn't we? We had to wear the away sides or the home sides shirts, didn't we?
Yeah, but well, that happens, and coincidentally, it was good to see Adrian Wisson back.
Yes, from his health problems. Yeah.
Yep, he was back in the dugout as kit man last week. Good bloke, Adrian.
Absolutely.
Fellow Middlesex fan, so he's all right. But you just think that didn't somebody had to sign off on this, and it's just made them okay. It's got the. Yeah, but the sponsor must be loving it. Apart from,
everyone's going to know Gilbert and Rose West now.
And so you just, but it's just one of those things. It's just one of those stupid things that goes viral for a few days. You could almost see Millwall wetting themselves over it.
Well, at least it wasn't us. I think that's probably the best consolation that we can come out with.
Yeah, but the only unfortunate thing was it wasn't Charlton. Yeah, because that would have just been superb, wouldn't it? That tiny little outfit down the road.
Absolutely. I mean, what struck me just to finish us off, Neil. I mean, you're a journalist of many years standing. I mean, you would have given your right arm to write this paragraph in your publication. Southend United, a football club that renamed the Stand after a serial killer. It's going to change its words. That must be the most wonderful paragraph to write.
Yeah, but not only a serial killer, but probably one of the worst killers in bloody
British history. That's right.
History, and thankfully it wasn't us, Nick. Yeah,
absolutely. That is the risk you run when you do anything, isn't it? That you can walk into these.
We shoot ourselves in the foot often enough, don't we? And quite over silly things, but thank God that wasn't Millwall.
It wasn't us. There we are. Neil, really appreciate you taking time out your Saturday morning. I'm going to try and get this podcast online ASAP. So we'll leave it there, mate, and we'll be talking to the listeners in the aftermath of this afternoon's trip to Sheffield. We'll be back on next Friday to consider the results. So until then, it's Arrivederci Millwall from me, and thank you, Neil.
And it's goodbye from me.
You have been listening to Achtung Millwall. Please do leave us a review at Apple Podcasts. Danke schon. Up the lines.